Welcome to Michigan Reimagined, presented by Good Marketing and Wagoner Financial. And here's your host, Chris Buck.
So insurance, by definition, is something most people would rather not think about. After all, people and businesses pay real money in the hopes of never having to use the services that they're paying for. But here to shed some light on why not to neglect this critical industry as a person or as a business is State Farm agent Mr. Kirk Byrens. Welcome to the show, Kirk.
Thank you, Chris.
Hey, I appreciate you being here. So, it took me a while to really realize that Michigan is really considered like a top 5 insurance hub for the United States. We have a big concentration of insurance providers here in mid-Michigan. I know you grew up in the mid-Michigan area. How did you get involved in the insurance industry? Because I don't know a lot of high school kids who are saying, I can't wait to get out of academics and get into insurance sales.
Yeah, it's actually funny. My first kind of even introduction into it, in high school, they did a senior class. I was in psychology, and then they taught that on top of it. It's like, hey, we'll try this out. And then from there, Olivet College, it was where my parents went to college, and they have an incredible insurance program there.
I've heard that.
Yes. So, for a school of probably 1,000 kids, you're going to have a few hundred that are going to come out specifically in the insurance program. And they're going to be prepared on day one, either licensing or, kind of real world. We all came out of there with internship requirements. So yeah, no one naturally gets into insurance, and where you're kind of saying like, I haven't heard it's a hub. It's just, we're not all chit chatting about it. Right. But those of us that came from that world, there's an incredible program, and so many good opportunities around here.
Right on. And so, as you're going through this program and getting to learn probably business overall, and then, the insurance side of business, but you must have gotten a really depth and breadth of intelligence on how business runs. Then you kind of look at graduation looming large. Yeah. How did you decide that State Farm was the flag you wanted to fly? Clearly, there's a million different insurance carriers out there, but when you said, I want to put my name on an agency, you have captive versus independent, right? Yep. And then, you make that decision and then you figure out who you want to fly. Why did State Farm resonate with you?
Well, that's a great question. And there's kind of 2 questions within that, right? Yep. So the first one being like, how did I get pulled into State Farm? Yep. First and foremost, I will sing Olivet College's praises here. When you have a smaller university like that, it's that connection with mentors and things. Okay. So I had the head of State Farm's fire claims at the time, was just our professor teaching business law, helping us, right? So, and then you've got local agents that were either alumni of the college. And so with the requirement of us to do internships, they had people coming in speaking to us every single week from Aon, Northwestern Mutual, you name it, right? The entire gambit. Okay. From the independent to the captive, like you kind of said, or there's even excess and surplus lines or going to the corporate side. So there were a lot of things. So Olivet exposed us there. And I found an opportunity where I was able to be a student. And at actually 19, I got licensed to sell insurance. So I started my junior year, leaving football practice, throwing my stuff in the car, taking a shower, and heading off to Penfield to work for a State Farm agent there, and make cold calls. And I'd work like 3 to 7.
How about that?
And then I'd come back. So I started out with that, where I found out I could get licensed and start doing it.
Okay.
So that was, the first part. Like, how did I find State Farm? Well, the agents found me, and then it was an opportunity. And you know how it is with so many college kids. If the door's there,
right,
they might need some nudging, but so many times they don't know how to find the door, right? And that's a huge part of it. So then from there, staying with State Farm, man, it's been 15 years now, starting when I was 19. And by the time I'm going to be done, we were talking about it could be 50 years that I'm with this company. So I would say the biggest thing there is I started to grow up with the company, right? My wife and I were kind of joking just the other day. The random things that we learn in insurance, I think, is beautiful, right? I wouldn't have understood car loans at the age of 19. I wouldn't have understood home mortgages. Checking savings accounts, credit cards, all of these things are being played with in the insurance world, whether they're being offered, which State Farm at the time had State Farm Bank. And so we were doing those things. Now there's a U.S. Bank alliance that's in place. But that got me experience in all those things. So I fell in love with that, right?
Got it.
So I stayed captive with State Farm for 2 reasons. One, they have over 100 different products. So when you're talking captive, that's the spot to be, in my opinion. Then secondarily, they still believe in that human aspect, right? The agents are at the core of everything they do. And I've now gotten to watch that technology go from 2011 to now, which I can't think of a more intense corporate landscape, from looking like you're going one direction with a company to another. So in that, I think it's very important in insurance for us to understand the fine print, because you're coming to me, you're trusting me,
right,
to get it right. And I don't like delivering bad news. I don't like having that phone call that's like, hey, Kirk, for $2, if you had explained it, $20,000 could have been covered in this claim. So that's where being captive with State Farm, growing up with the company, understanding the policies, it all made sense. I have worked for other companies, and there are some incredible ones. I mean, I'll give a nod to like Frankenmuth Insurance. They're one here that specifically started, within Michigan. That was my first internship. I mean, I remember learning what the word deductible meant there, so it's like, but they put us directly into working, doing, 6 weeks of claims and underwrite. You were directly working. I didn't know what a word burning stove was, and they put me in charge of it, and I'm sending back memos to agents, and they're saying he doesn't know what he's talking about, so it was they would throw us right in and get us experience. And that was what was so great about all of that. They found those lanes for you to do that.
Got it. Okay. So now you're with State Farm. You've been with State Farm for a while. Clearly you bleed red. And that's just the way you're done. So how does State Farm continue to educate you now that you're not a grizzled veteran, but you're in your peak, right? This is kind of your peak, productivity years, and you build a nice portfolio and stuff, but how do you stay sharp? How does State Farm help you stay sharp?
Yeah, let's hope I'm not just peaking, right?
Right.
We're at the peak. The peak is no, I'm just but no, one of the beautiful things about State Farm is two-pronged. One, they care very heavily about our personal development, our mental health as agents. That's so huge in this industry because it's not like we're having cupcake and rainbow conversations, right?
Right.
We tell everyone it's a unique industry where when people are calling me to use my services, something's usually going wrong. That's rare, you know what I mean? So you're starting out with somebody crying, something being, so State Farm works on not only our true knowledge of the policies, but also our ability to connect emotionally with people and ourselves, because that's important in going through this and having a long career. But they have multiple things that they offer internally. They also will pay for professional licensing.
Okay.
And, I'll just tell you, even anecdotally, like I have tons of friends in the industry that work for other insurance companies, whether agents or employees, and they would be the first to tell you if someone's getting into sales, they'll tell them to start with State Farm, right? Or getting into agency, they'll say start with State Farm, because they know that we're going to go back to the basis. Because the agents are so heavily involved, it's my skin on the line. If I'm putting a team member out there to protect Chris, who's trusted me with his policies, they've got to be ready.
Right.
So we take our training seriously, from how we teach our team members all the way up through and corporate backs that.
Makes a lot of sense. Well, here at Michigan Reimagined, we tell the stories of passionate Michiganders doing great things across the state. Today's podcast sponsor takes the art of positive storytelling to a whole new level. The good people at Good Marketing work with organizations across the state that are having a positive impact on the lives of Michigan residents. They help educate communities on the importance of affordable housing, the impact of wildlife and natural resource management, the availability of workforce development and education programs. If it lifts people up and makes communities stronger, then they want to help spread the word. If your organization needs help communicating the good work you do, stop by their website at goodmarketing.com. That's GUD marketing.com. So how does Kirk Byrens differentiate yourself from other State Farm agents? Because there's got to be, I don't know what your, whether there's rules on location or whatever, but there's a dozen maybe or more State Farm agents in the mid-Michigan area. So how do you kind of compete against them, or how do you differentiate your brand versus maybe some of the other people? Yeah.
So actually, to piggyback off your previous question of how do they keep us kind of pushing, a lot of other agents I talk to with other companies, that is a huge piece that's missing. It's how do you guys play into this bigger scheme or bigger wheel of, there's an agent down the road. It could be 1 mile, or it could be that you don't have any within 50 miles of you, right? So State Farm heavily promotes us working together and sharing ideas. The amount of, and I actually spoke on a previous podcast with you, the amount of opportunity out there where we've always said the true kind of competition is whether or not people go online and avoid a human altogether, or they go through a human.
Right.
Right. Yep. So I would much rather, and I say this to people daily, I would much rather have them go with another State Farm agent and have a human assisting them with their insurance, because I promise them they'll tell someone else about State Farm, right? Like that's going to take care of itself. That product will back itself. But to differentiate myself, this is the fun part about State Farm. We're captive, but every office you go into, you might be greeted by a big golden retriever at one, right? You know what I mean? And there's deer antlers on the wall. The other one you might come into, it's nothing but flashy screens and iPads, you know, and then the next one, someone's baking cookies. I mean, it's all over the map on our personalities coming through with that.
Right. Okay.
So there's a core quality that's going to be there with State Farm. But at the end of the day, where I kind of differentiate or try is I've grown up in the industry, right? So I understand, and you and I have talked about this, but I try to make that barrier of entry low. It does not matter what you know. My experience in the world from mortgages, being mortgage licensed myself at the time when that was being offered, I bring that to the table with people and understand, having gone through that I would not know any of this stuff. I don't expect somebody who owns a business, who's a highly, you know, on paper, everything may look incredible. But when it comes to this world, until you've seen it and until you've lived it every single day, I don't expect them to know. Right. So I'm involved very heavily in my office, and that's rare. A lot of other agents, whether it's with other companies or not, they may have 10, 15 employees. Right. So, you know, we've got the same kind of capacity and staff offering here with my office. But you may call in and I'm answering the phone. Right. So I deal with almost every single claim that comes through our office because to me, and like I've mentioned, 15 years into the industry, probably another at my age, another 40 to go. Lord knows where retirement and so, right? So, you know, to me, it's a long game, and I plan to be here. This was the end goal for me. This was the, you know, light at the end of the tunnel that I was working for, was to be an agent and be a business owner. My father was one. But being with State Farm, differentiating myself is that I'm there, I'm involved in the claims, and I believe when you buy insurance, it's that promise, right? And it's just it's a piece of paper until the human part comes through and somebody backs it up.
Right on.
And so, you know, I was telling you a story about a house fire we had. Somebody had a 5-foot boa constrictor. You know, I don't expect a brand new team member to know how to handle where we put them after a fire.
Right. Okay.
So that's a unique
So
example.
the snake lived.
Yeah, exactly.
But they were
right?
displaced.
Exactly. And that's what I was saying. You know, all of a sudden I'm asking questions like, do we have to worry about, you know, smoke inhalation in a snake? You know, these are things. But then I joke with customers who say, that's not going to happen. I just say, I got that call yesterday. You know what I mean? So it's like,
Right,
and I get it.
yeah,
Unless I'm
sure.
in that world, I stay in that world. I live in that world. That way you can live in yours, right? So we look out for that day to day, and we've seen it. And sometimes that's what it takes, is having dealt with it before you can even be there to assist. So my big differentiator, I would say, is my involvement. And that's why, once again, I love State Farm, because they let me do that as the agent.
Right on. Okay. So how do customers begin an engagement with you? Do you have any kind of, doesn't need to be a statistic, but how many first-time policyholders do you end up writing versus other people who are like, hey, I'm just shopping around.
Oh, yeah.
And I need to, you know, I think I want to get better insurance or a cheaper price or whatever. And so I'd like to leave this other agent for you. Like, do you know roughly how?
Yeah. So, I mean, I could tell you like closing percentages would probably be the most realistic, but it's so interesting these days on like how many people do we actually get to the point where we know that we talk to them? We actually try to track that in my office of actual verbal conversations. If I emailed out a quote, we don't know if they ever just clicked on the number line, right? Or if they looked at the coverage, or if they even care to. That's why our first question we're going to ask you when you talk about like ways that they're coming in or how they're starting is, well, why are you shopping, Chris? That's usually going to tell me the first thing that was an issue for you. Did your price go up and they didn't explain it, right? Was it, you know, I have a new driver in the household. Did I change jobs? Have I just not looked at it in 5 years? Have laws changed? There's so many things. And if I don't know where you're coming from, how do I meet you? Right. And that's what matters, is I meet you and I say, this is insurance. It's not fun, right? But let's make it somewhat enjoyable. And let's be humans and go through this, because Lord knows I'd love an insurance agent to handle all my healthcare bills that roll in. You know what I mean? You're like, what does this line mean? You name it. So yeah, there's online access. They can go to my website, which is www.sfbyrens.com, like State Farm Byrens. There you can access everything, start a quote. You can look at claims, you know, you can contact me. You can apply for a job with me, any of those things. It's kind of our initial hub, if you will.
Yeah, sure.
From there, you know, I'm still old school. Come in and shake my hand, come meet with me. That's what I was saying. You can find me at the office. You can call in and probably get me and get on my calendar. If you can't, the team's ready to put you on there, because that's how I love to do it. And I have a lot of availability there. I'll do after hours. you name it. First town I worked in was a factory town. So when you have those hours, you got to be ready with people.
Right. Yeah.
Hours.
Third shift.
Yeah. You got to be ready and help. Yeah.
And so you go to them, they come to you, whatever works.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So whatever works. So we can do email. They can text my office, literally our 517-349-3830 number is textable or callable. And and they can text me photos. Hey, how do I insure this? Because sometimes they don't even know how to tell me what it is.
Right. But you must go through like you must have like just a list of questions. Like first thing, it's like, hey, I want to get a price for insurance. Like, okay, how many drivers? How many cars? Yeah. What are the cars? Tell me about your house. And do you have any second houses? Do you have a snake? Do you have, right? I mean, you must just go through this huge laundry list of, things that these people need to tell you in order for
That's a great question. So there is a laundry list of things. The part of dealing with a human that I think is beneficial is like, if you go online, yes, you're going to start answering like a full-blown interview, if you will, trying to fill it out yourself. Talking to us, State Farm believes in what's called the simple conversation, which is, Chris, if I identify what you're most worried about, we're going to be able to work backward from there, right? It's, hey, I'm worried about the kids and making sure that they're taken care of. If it's, hey, I'm worried about this lake house that we go up to, once a year, and the last thing we want to do is show up for vacation and it's underwater, right? You name it. So, finding out where you're at, excuse me, that's where I always say, I ask the first question up front is, what's got you shopping? Right. From there, so much of the different technology or quoting, like what you mentioned, like, a laundry list of questions, I can dive right into a quote with respect for people's time. And if we just have a conversation, I don't need to ask you, Chris, if you commute every day to work. If you tell me, here's where I work, and I know that you live at this address, I can put two together. You're getting there somehow. Right. So I believe in having a true conversation with people because we always say context matters and clarity matters. I work for you as the customer, and I'm your representative then to the company, right? So it's you talk to me, give me the reality of what you're looking for, and then I can help put you in the proper lineup for that. Right.
What would you say are some of the common mistakes people make with their insurance, or like as you're going through your discovery and they're insured by someone else?
Yeah.
And you're like, and you like, do you see things that you're like, you need better coverage for this particular component because of your lifestyle? Are there kind of top three underinsured or uninsured or mistakes that are made by the average consumer?
Well, here's a great question for you, Chris. I mean, how often have you gone into something with insurance and said, I just want apples to apples, right? Or I want to, compare, match what I have. We'll compare price.
Right.
Well, these are contracts. These are promises, right? So no two contracts are the same. On the cover, it may look the same. We may have the same cover page looking, right? But when you start, that's where I was saying, like, truly why I love State Farm is I've been with them for so long. I understand that fine print. Whereas you could be dealing with a team member who's got 6 months of experience, Chris, and you're coming in with $6 million in assets. That's a scary scenario to be in, right? So does that agent review those things? Do they vet those things? So the common mistake I see is they take what they have, they keep getting it quoted to try to beat a price. Okay. Then from there, they never review those coverages. It might happen once or twice in their entire lifetime that somebody does a full-blown needs analysis. I mean, the only barrier there is time. Everybody thinks it's going to take a long amount of time, but I always tell everyone, like, if we start with a needs analysis, it's like squeezing a balloon, right? It's like, if you don't give me much information on the front end, I need a lot before I can do an application, or the quotes might change.
Right.
If you give me everything up front, then you might call me back and it's 5 minutes to get everything done. You see what I'm saying? So much of that is based on having a proper conversation. So in today's world, because it does shift, based on how the economy is going on, people are worried about either their current assets or saving money, depending on, things. Because we get that. If you're coming in and you're like, hey, it's this monthly premium or food on the table, I think we should get you fed. You know what I mean? So there are realities that we have to look at with that. But I do caution people to walk in and tell someone, or go online and kind of name your price, or put yourself in a position where you are saying, I want it cheapest. You're going to pigeonhole a salesperson. They cannot just make up premiums. I would be the most popular agent in the world if I had a lever, right?
Right.
There's a basis that's going to be there. The difference between incredible coverage and state minimums can quite literally be $20 a month. It is not the barrier people think.
Okay.
But when you're talking about just going at this number and saying, I want you to beat my monthly number, $20 could be the difference. So that salesperson is going to make that decision for you. You get what I'm saying? So
Okay.
I think coming in and saying I want to be covered properly, you can decide at any point to raise the white flag and say, I don't want to have this conversation anymore. You control it, right?
Right.
But I would say don't pigeonhole yourself up front to putting someone as that's my most critical need as being $10 cheaper per month.
Right. Yeah. And it seems like you build the policy out, right? All the things that you want to have covered, what the coverage limits are, what deductibles are, and you just kind of build it all based on what the best scenario is for that person's lifestyle.
Yeah.
And then look at that number, and then you can say, okay, is there any way I can modify this? If I knock my deductible up a little bit,
Yeah.
what does that do to my premium? And it's like, well, just for this much more, you can get this much more or this much less.
Well, and I tell people all the time, because the one thing you don't want to do, and this might just be a sales training thing, but don't start out with the low price, right? I tell everyone, let me talk to you and tell you what you should have, because at that point, you're going to have a great time taking money away, right? And lowering that premium. You're going to be thrilled. Hey, Kirk, let's knock that down and cut it in half. Great.
Yep.
Now you know what you're giving up. And I feel like as a consumer, the thing these days that we never get is that consumer right to truly understand. And I love that I can check for understanding, not only while I'm talking to you, but then we're signing paperwork at the end that clearly lays this out, that says, here's what was offered to you. Here's what you did or didn't take. We note things. So if I make an error, you're protected. Or if you make an error in something you told me, but you misunderstood.
Right.
So yeah, that's the big thing is, like, when you go through and quote those, start out and quote people the options, because I tell people all the time, it's so much easier, depending on where you're at financially, to plan for, say, $20 more a month, Chris, in my budget versus $5,000 tomorrow on a car accident where my deductible was jacked up. I don't have rental car, right? I didn't have towing,
Right.
You know, so these all seem like things that are irrelevant. And it's like, no, that could be $15,000 in a heartbeat. I mean, rental car just completely changed after COVID in our industry, right? Enterprise and Hertz and all these other locations were nearly cut down a third or in half.
Right.
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 Now inventory, you used to be able to get rental car coverage for $25 a day. The cheapest you could even find is $50 a day, and it's going to cap out.
Wow.
You know? So yeah, it's crazy how much even that has evolved after something like COVID.
Right. Right. Okay. Well, I just want to say that this episode is brought to you by the Michigan Rise Pre-Seed Fund, providing early-stage funding to Michigan-based startups. Since 2020, Michigan Rise has helped high-tech, high-growth startup companies achieve commercial and technical milestones through capital formation strategies, talent development, customer acquisition tactics. With financing options for every stage of the entrepreneurial journey, Michigan Rise significantly increases the impact of new ideas and research. Visit MichiganRise.com to discover how Michigan Rise can help fuel your startup's growth. Michigan Rise is supported by the Michigan Economic Development Corporation and the Michigan State University Research Foundation. So we've talked, it sounds like a lot of the scenarios you've talked about are more personal lines. State Farm does business insurance too. So if I'm an entrepreneur doing things like if I'm a small business owner or an entrepreneur or in the gig, the gigs, job ecosystem, to insure myself from a professional standpoint, talk about those kinds of services and what should people keep in mind for that kind of need.
Well, once again, what a great spot to be in where I'm a business owner. The amount of opportunities I've been able to find talking to someone and saying, I know what keeps you up at night. You know what I mean?
Right,
That's huge, because I didn't know what kept me up at night until it happened, and I've gone through, when I first started my agency back in April of 2017, and my wife and I moved here, we were new to this area. We grew up about an hour away. She was more like 2.5 hours away at the time. So we were new to the area. Then all of a sudden the next year we have a baby, we buy a house. So all these things that I know business owners are dealing with, whether they're coming new into the area or they're existing and their business is shifting, it can be so many of those personal things that bleed in. Right. And at the same time, I can do both. Right. I've had it before where the largest expense or somebody's fear is their 16-year-old now on their personal auto.
Right.
And that's stripping them of the funds to do things on their business side. So there is a cohesion there, or a symbiotic relationship that I can take care of. But yeah, State Farm offers an incredible amount of product lines and options for businesses. And the nice thing is they actually tailor and build out based on that business. They kind of have prefabbed out policies that make sure they look for those gaps depending on what you do.
Okay.
So we do a lot of business insurance, and I do specifically with my agency, which is another differentiator between me and maybe some other insurance agents that don't delve into that.
Got it. Okay. So I've had a couple of shows, probably 5 or 6 actually, that talk specifically about cybersecurity.
Yes.
More from here's a cybersecurity services provider. Hey, if you're a small business owner, it's not a matter of if, but when.
Yes.
There's this many attempts to hack into your data, and here's all the hostage stories and the Bitcoin, the dark web payments and all that kind of stuff. So that's obviously the defense to prevent it from happening. But how important is cybersecurity from an insurance kind of standpoint? Do individuals get cyber
That's such a great
insurance, or is that
question.
more of a business
So
expense?
it's evolving constantly, but it is offered to both.
Okay.
Because, once again, as a business owner, if my card is hacked personally, you and I both know I'm not running my business. I'm getting that fixed. You know what I mean? So it can pull both. So I mean, on all homeowners policies, there are options now where you can add these. And it's what's called options and endorsements on any homeowner's policy. There are set things that the state requires every homeowner's policy to have for anyone to play ball in the state of Michigan. But you'd be shocked at how bare bones that can be. Right? Thank goodness our state even has requirements. Sometimes it's the Wild West. But then from there, options and endorsements, $25 a year would be like our fraud endorsement. And then you're talking about upwards of $50,000 in coverage, it providing against somebody, even writing you a faulty check and buying your used car out of your yard, so there's so many things that can come up on the personal side, and that's so inexpensive because it's going to happen. I get a call now really from kind of COVID and beyond when people did more digital stuff. I get a phone call probably 2 or 3 a day now of that credit card getting hacked, and it could be the 3rd or 4th time for someone this year.
Wow.
It's been so aggressive with that. Right. So one, you've got that. And then on the other side, on the business, you've got not only the cybersecurity risk, but then you have to worry about data compromise. That's another part of it that I think is coming up more is like, if I'm storing credit cards or I'm storing customer information, what are my protections? And you think about a mom and pop bakery, if they're doing, some kind of Square payment system or saving, what's the security? Have they even thought of it? Do they even have the capabilities to handle that? So a lot of times it's because that product needs to be there because the preventative aspect, it's so hard to prevent, and they're going to evolve and it's going to happen. It's not if, it's when with that.
Right. Totally makes sense. So are there any other trends or laws? Like recently we're recording this as of July of 2025 for those who find this show down the road. Is there anything new on the insurance scene that people may not be familiar with, or any changes?
Yeah. So 2 things I would say. One, if you don't have an agent, get with one, because every company right now has been adding new coverages for things that we're seeing.
Okay.
Service line coverage is a new one you're going to see on homes. That's that gas water line going to your house now that are being ripped up or tree roots have grown in.
Right.
And you can get a check, and that's not your home. That's the stuff running up to it. Right. So all of a sudden there's been a contract barrier there, right? And it's something they've run into. So every company is adding these kinds of coverages. But the one I would tell everyone that is being overlooked, and it's still new, because if you looked at when we did the actual no-fault reform here in Michigan, right? That took place in, I believe it was July of 2020. And it was in the middle of kind of the heat of COVID, right? So when that hit, all these companies are sending back money. People are kind of just making quick adjustments financially. Everyone's world was being rocked at that time, right? So now we had gone since roughly when Richard Nixon was president to 2020 without any major reform on the no-fault laws, okay? Then we did that all in 2020. Since then, almost every 6 months, an update has come out, okay?
Right.
But people have either still not had that conversation about those laws, or they've had it and now they've got different jobs and kids and healthcare. I mean, you're required to sign forms every 6 months, get documentation every year. Almost every one of us in the insurance industry that's an agent has hired an entire staff member just to handle the forms that came from that law change.
Wow.
So it was a huge issue. And it was even a fight to get those forms to be digital, because the consumer is quite literally signing away their rights in a lot of cases and saying, I understand and I've taken responsibility. That happens a lot online when you check the terms and agreements after you do yourself, an online quote. And I always say that, like, who's responsible? Who's there to protect you and who's there to come back and be accountable for it? If it's just you, That can be huge. So yeah, the law change I would say to look out for right now is still that no fault auto reform.
Yep.
Because if you and I are sitting here healthy, Chris, it's not like I'm expecting to have a terminal illness pop up tomorrow, surprise.
Yep.
But could I pull out of here and get into a pretty severe car accident that alters my way of life? That's extremely common.
Yep.
Right. So we all overlook that, but that's why Michigan is the state it is with this no fault stuff, is they care about people having coverage after one of the most common critical things that could happen, to go from, my life is perfect today to completely different tomorrow, is often a car accident. And
Right.
we have incredible medical options, but you can also completely strip those away and cut your premium in half. It's just, there is a risk reward and a give and take. It is not a, hey, we reduced premium for free. There's a give.
Yep. Totally makes sense. Well, it's been very educational to hear your story and how you've gotten here. Most people, maybe they talk to their insurance agents once a year.
Yeah.
And hopefully they pump them for good information and have a personal relationship where they can just say, listen, Chris, you're underinsured and you need this, or, I know you got the cottage. What about these jet skis? You got teenagers, friends, driving these things around.
We come with the premium. You make me valuable or you don't, right? So if you're paying the premium to have an agent there, and oftentimes it's not even more than if you went online. In a lot of cases, use us. I say that all the time. Let me be valuable to you, please. That's what helps me sleep at night.
Well, you rattled it off during the show, but can you remind people how they can get in touch with State Farm?
Thank you.
Kirk Byrens again.
Yeah, so my office, I'm over there in Okemos. I'm right off of Okemos Road in Grand River where Meyer is. Big brick building. We're on the second floor. So we have, no barrier of entry on how you want to get to us. If you want to come in and meet with me in person, stop in and have a cup of coffee. If you want to call or text my office, that's 517-349-3830. You can find us on Facebook at Kirk Byrens State Farm Insurance Agency. That's where you and I had shared a lot of things about some of the community involvement things I do. So if people want to see, because that's another piece of what we love to do here is give back. We do a lot with Lake Lansing South. In that park area. So Facebook, I do have social, the other socials and things, but that's the most common. And then my website as well, www.s like state, F like farm, Byrens, BYRENS.com.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much for joining me here today, Kirk. It's been a lot of fun. And I'd like to give a final shout out to all my loyal sponsors. We got Wagoner Financial, Good Marketing, Triterra Environmental, Keller Williams Advantage and Team, Michigan Rise, Kirk Byrens State Farm, and the attorneys at Foster Swift. They're all fantastic people worth the call. And if you found the show as a one-off, I want to remind you to follow and subscribe to Michigan Reimagined on YouTube, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and pretty much anywhere you find your podcasts. This is Chris Buck signing off for Michigan Reimagined.